Fatah Makkah, the conquest of Mecca in 630 CE was one of the most pivotal events in Islamic history. It marked the triumph of the Muslim community over the Quraysh, the tribe that had been hostile to Islam since its inception, and the eventual, peaceful takeover of Mecca, the holiest city in Islam. This event was a turning point in the spread of Islam, and it solidified the position of the Muslim community in the Arabian Peninsula. Background: before the conquest of Mecca, there had been a series of escalating tensions and conflicts between the Muslims and the Quraysh. The Muslims had initially fled Mecca in 620 to see the Hijra due to persecution, establishing their base in Medina. After the migration, several battles ensued, including Badr, Uhud, and the Battle of the Trench. Kondak. Despite setbacks, the Muslims had become stronger both politically and militarily. In 628 CE, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah was signed between the Quraysh and the Muslims. The treaty, although controversial at the time, allowed both parties to coexist peacefully for 10 years. It also allowed the Muslims to enter Mecca for pilgrimage the following year. However, the Quraysh breached the treaty when they aided one of their allies, the Banu Bakr, in an attack on the Muslims' allies, the Quza tribe. The breach of the treaty by the Quraysh was a significant event. The Quza tribe, which had allied with the Muslims, was attacked by the Quraysh and their ally, the Banu Bakr. The Muslims viewed this as a direct violation of the peace agreement. The Prophet Muhammad, having been informed of the breach, consulted with his companions and decided to take decisive action. The breach of the treaty was seen as a divine sign to take action, and the Muslims, who had grown in strength and numbers, began to prepare for the military campaign. The march to Mecca. In response to the Quraysh's violation of the treaty, the Prophet Muhammad gathered a substantial force of about 10,000 Muslims. This large army was a demonstration of the growing strength of Islam. The Muslims prepared for the march in secret to maintain the element of surprise. The Prophet Muhammad instructed his followers to keep their movements concealed, but some Quraysh spies caught wind of the preparations. Despite this, the Quraysh were caught off guard by the size and rapid movement of the Muslim army. The Prophet led his army from Medina towards Mecca in a strategic and disciplined manner. The conquest of Mecca. As the Muslims approached Mecca, they surrounded the city. The Quraysh, now aware of the Muslim approach, began to panic, as they had no capacity to withstand such a large and determined force. The Quraysh sent envoys to the Prophet Muhammad, seeking peace and offering terms of surrender. Among the envoys were key leaders such as Abu Sufyan, who had long been a prominent opponent of Islam. The Prophet, although initially stern with them, responded with mercy and patience. After some negotiation, he assured the Quraysh that they would not face retribution for their previous hostilities, as long as they surrendered peacefully. This offer of mercy was a significant factor in avoiding bloodshed and allowing for a relatively peaceful conquest of the city. The key events of the conquest. Point 1. Entry into Mecca. The Muslim army entered Mecca on January 11, 630 CE. The Quraysh had little resistance left, as many of their leaders had either fled or had been neutralized by the Muslim force. The city was taken without significant bloodshed. 2. The destruction of idols. One of the key actions following the conquest was the removal and destruction of the numerous idols and pagan symbols that had been placed in the Kaaba and around Mecca. The Prophet Muhammad ordered the destruction of the idols around the Kaaba, which symbolized the end of polytheism in the city. The Prophet also declared the Kaaba as the sacred sanctuary for Muslims alone. 3. The mercy to the Quraysh. Despite their years of persecution and opposition to Islam, the Prophet Muhammad offered a general amnesty to the Quraysh. He forgave the people of Mecca, stating that they were not to be punished for their past deeds. This act of clemency is one of the most celebrated aspects of the conquest. The Quraysh, who had once been fierce enemies, were granted the chance to embrace Islam and live peacefully. Abu Sufyan, one of the Quraysh leaders and a bitter opponent of Islam, converted to Islam during this period after realizing the futility of continued resistance. Many other prominent figures of the Quraysh also accepted Islam during this time, recognizing the strength and legitimacy of the Muslim community. 4. The conversion of Mecca. With the conquest of the city, the Muslims were able to establish Islam firmly in Mecca. The Prophet Muhammad performed the rites of Hajj in 630 CE, marking the first pilgrimage as a Muslim leader. The aftermath of the conquest. After the conquest, Mecca was officially incorporated into the Muslim state. The Kaaba, the most sacred site in Islam, was purified and rededicated to the worship of the one true God, Allah. The Prophet Muhammad's actions demonstrated not only military prowess but also magnanimity, offering forgiveness and mercy to those who had opposed him for years. The conversion of Mecca was a powerful, symbolic and practical victory for Islam. It solidified the religious, political, and military strength of the Muslim community in the Arabian Peninsula. It also set the stage for the subsequent spread of Islam to other regions. The conquest of Mecca was a defining moment in the history of Islam. It demonstrated the Prophet Muhammad's leadership, wisdom, and compassion, and it was instrumental in establishing Islam as a political and spiritual force. The event also marked the end of the Quraysh's opposition to Islam, and it paved the way for the unification of the Arabian Peninsula under the banner of Islam. The conquest stands as a testament to the power of mercy and forgiveness, as well as the strength of faith and perseverance.